This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It is sunny and warm out here on Djuma Game Reserve this fine afternoon. Quite an array of antelope in front of us. We've got some impala and most especially some kudu bulls. I love it when I see the kudu bulls out here in quarantine. I'm sure that you do too. So jump on board, everybody. I'm very excited to take you on board your live safari through the African bush. Good afternoon. Look at this. What a beautiful, beautiful scene. Like I said to you, here on Djuma Game Reserve, really, really warm this afternoon. And much like the antelope around quarantine, Mpho and I are looking for some shade, which is why I'm in this awkward position next to this bush. Hi everyone, it is me, Trishala, and like I said, I've got Mpho on camera this afternoon on Djuma Game Reserve. Very excited because there's potential for quite a lot of things. So looking at possibly torchwood lionesses towards the evening, maybe Tlalamba. She's got a kill near the Mulwati. That's something I really want to see because with the rains that we've been having this wet season, the Mulwati has been flowing just a little bit, but it's very, very pretty. So that's worth a look. And also really want to go check out the hyena den. So plenty of excitement to look forward to today. Now remember, it's your live safari, so use that hashtag WildEarth or @FC on the YouTube chat stream. You can also go to our website, register, and use the question box to ask us anything that you like. And for our wonderful kiddies, under 18s, you can use kids' questions at wildearth.tv. I think that these antelope are coping much better than I am with the heat today. I feel I am already damp. It's already sweaty and humid. But the antelope seem pretty fine. I must say, usually when it's sweltering like it is at the moment, you'll find them grouped under trees to a much more concentrated extent. You'll find herds in round little balls underneath the trees, but they seem fairly happy to just roam around at the moment. Now, something we don't often talk about with antelopes is that they also flick their ears. You know, we talk about elephants flicking their ears to remain cool. Ears, by the definition of ears, especially the outer part of it, it's called a pinnae. Those bits help channel in sound, but they're also large and have thin skin, so it means that they can dissipate heat quite well. So as we're watching these antelope, you'll see that they'll be swinging their ears around, definitely to get rid of flies and pests, but also in the heat, it'll produce some sort of breeze that will allow them to cool down a little bit. It's the same kind of principle as us when we want to stay warm, then we don't want to lose heat through our ears, and we'll put a beanie on to cover our ears because the skin around the ear is so thin and the blood vessels are so close to the skin. That way we can easily gain or lose heat like that through them. So it's about 30 degrees Celsius, 88 degrees Fahrenheit. Maybe now that I say it, it's not that terribly hot. It could be 34, or it could be 40, as it generally is in these parts around this time of year. Look at those ears go. That's also very, very cute. Anyway, we're going to start moving south. Maybe first check out some waterholes, Treehouse Dam, and then we'll go from there. And I've told you all about the weather here on Djuma, so how about I send you over to have a look at what the weather is doing in our other locations.
everybody, good afternoon and welcome to Pride and Eco Training, where my name is Steve, and I'm joined by Johan on camera once again, and we are delighted to have you with us again. Of course, it is 30 degrees Celsius, 88 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is quite warm. We are going to be bumping from shade to shade to shade, and this afternoon, I'm going to look at some grasses. I hope you don't mind. They're not going anywhere. They are everywhere. So how's some grasses? We did some flowers this morning. It's a great time of year to talk about grasses, and we might even do a discussion on succession, because grassland succession is a very interesting one. And a student of mine, seeing as I am back at Eco Training, a student of mine years ago on an assessment or a practice walk with me or drive with me, I can't remember what it was, showed me something, and I've actually done it a couple times in the show. So some of you have seen it before, but others have not. But that is okay, because it's a very educational sort of discussion on the importance of grasses, how they go through these different stages of ecological importance, and how animals sort of work in the mix as well. So I think that we'll do that this afternoon, and then maybe talk a little bit about soil if I can find the rocks I'm looking for. And who knows, when we do that, that's when all the other animals decide to come out and play, don't they? Indeed. So when we talk about a grass, why, what's important about grass, really? I mean, first of all, it's the most eaten plant in the world. Everything that most people eat comes from grass. So corn, grain, coconuts. You didn't think that one, did you? Sugar cane, sugar, barley, wheat, all the whiskey drinkers out there. Where would you be without a grass? You'd be pretty out of it. My friends are very into their whiskey. They've got a big business with whiskey, and so without barley and malt, I don't quite know exactly what they would do with themselves. So grasses are everywhere, everybody, and they have massive ecological importances as well. So if I just get Johan just to pan over to the right here, and what looks to be quite a sort of universal sort of stage here, you can see over here's a clump, over there's a clump, over there's a clump, and in between all different types of grasses. So if I walked in here, I'd probably be able to identify between 5, maybe 7 different species of grass that are there, maybe even more. But there's a few dominant species. You get sort of communities where grasses move in and take over, and this is all a very natural sort of progression, very natural progression. So I'm going to talk about grasses from the beginning till the end. And how do we start? We start with pioneers. Now, pioneers are species that are able to move in to the area, and they make it more suitable for others. So what does a pioneer do? A pioneer is able to support or survive in an area that is quite sort of uncomfortable. The first foot trekkers that moved up to this part of the world, they had to deal with lions, they had to deal with elephants, they had to deal with all sorts of very, very difficult conditions, and they paved the way for new people to arrive. So I'll start with my first little pioneer grass on the dashboard over here, and something that's quite easy to identify in a pioneer grass is that there's very little very little leaf, enormous amounts of seed. Okay, so pioneer is not really growing there to be eaten to a massive extent. It's basically growing there to produce seed, to cover the ground, to reproduce. I think I've lost, no I haven't. To reproduce and to add a bit of more organic material, and then through that other grasses can sort of accumulate. So this one is known as the tassel thereon, and I'll show you why. Okay, now grasses have got seeds. There is the seed at the bottom. You can kind of see it just at the tip of my finger. That's the sharp little seed. People who have sheep, who farm out in areas where this grass is, this is an absolute nightmare for them. Excuse me for the radio, and my seed has blown away. Let me grab another one. This is the stuff that gets into our socks. This is the stuff that gets into sheep's wool, and it actually burrows in. So that is the seed up at the top, and the other bits that I'm holding are designed specifically for distribution of this grass, and they're called awns. In grass we have distribution agents, and those are called awn. So this one very easy, called thereon. And that is the seed at the top there. Okay, so lots and lots and lots of seed. And this is designed to get burrowed in animals' fur, burrow in the ground, and look at all of that. Lindy, look at all of those seeds there. Look at all of them. And they are going to eventually do their thing. Lindy, a sign of life. It is beautiful. And so these seeds will fall in the ground, produce lots of little grasses like the one we just plucked. So enormous amounts of seed, very, very little leaf material. So that is one of the many pioneers that we have. And we also call them, I know this might sound a little bit confusing, but we also call those grasses increaser 2. Now don't worry too much about these terms. There's increaser 1s, increaser 2s, decreases. Now increaser 2, just so that you know, increases when there are too many animals around. A good friend of mine, David, told me that once. Too many animals. So they increase with overutilization. So they're actually there designed to protect the soil and to increase when there's too many animals feeding on the area. So they are a disturbance mechanism. All pioneers are increaser 2s because the area, something's happened and they've moved in. Does that make sense? You get some grasses that increaser 1. We'll discuss that later, and others that are called decreases. We'll discuss that as well. But within the Kruger Park, there's, I think, 91 species of grass, and only about 11, maybe 12 that are really of ecological importance from a manager. So when we do felt condition surveys, we're looking for very particular grasses, and a dominance of this one or that one will tell you exactly what's going on in the vegetation. Okay, hold on. We are going to succeed in the succession this afternoon while we send you over to andBeyond and Ngala to say good afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome to andBeyond and Ngala, where we are looking at some lions drinking. And have a look at those 3 very surprised, confused little faces off to the left-hand side. And a quite concerned mother, and I think she's just giving a quick glance, looking back in the direction of the carcass. Looks like they've just come for a drink. And the 3 little ones, she actually called them to come over to the shade so to come and have a drink. I'm Yapi. Behind the camera we've got Owen, and this afternoon is extremely hot here in Ngala. And I think this lioness has suffered quite a bit in the heat now. I saw her panting heavily, and she looked very uncomfortable and then decided to come for a drink. And look at the 3 little ones. Notice that none of them are actually drinking. They're more intrigued by the tall grass and the muddy edge around the pool than anything else. And then also, I can hear a lot of impalas calling from all directions. I think that's also adding a little bit to the nervousness of the lioness, and that's why we saw her give that quick glance over her shoulder to see if her food's still secure. Peach Buddy, I agree with you. I think they are adorable, especially at this age. These little ones, they're still quite young, and we don't, on Ngala, we don't always see them this early on. And you can see there's also a large elephant in the area. Listen to that. How amazing is that? Her call immediately signals them to run straight towards her. It sounded like quite a desperate call, that. Now I'm curious to see what she does. That big elephant bull in the middle of the clearing doesn't seem to be aware of them, or maybe he is, maybe he just doesn't care. But I wonder whether this lioness will go back to her carcass now. Something's drawn her attention towards the carcass, and it's a vulture. Simpson, that's a good question. Do they drink water as well? They do start drinking water, at least at this stage, but they're so... Oh, and you can see that little one's quite concerned about the mother. I think now they're going to move over to the same direction. You can hear the desperation in those calls. Because for them, they don't quite understand why the mother ran off so quickly. I think I'm going to reposition a little bit, see if we can get another view. But Simpson, to answer your question, the lion cubs do actually drink water. At this stage, they're just used to drinking milk, and these ones are still very young. They're about 8 weeks only now. On Ngala, it's rare to see lion cubs this relaxed and out in the open at that point in their life. Normally, because of the trickiness of tracking these animals on this reserve, we only start seeing them a little bit later on, once they've fully been introduced to eating meat and moving with the rest of the pride, and it's become a norm. Lucy, that's a good question. What is the population of lions at Ngala? I don't know. I would like to know, though. But it keeps changing every day, every year, every season. It depends on the movement of lions. It's an open fence system. There's no fences separating it from the nearby reserves, which means that lions can come on and off as they please. Now she's found quite a tricky spot, and it looks like she's gone to go lay back down in the shade, but I think she's also chose this spot quite strategically, which I find very interesting. Oof, from where I'm sitting, I'm getting a whiff of the carcass, which by now has been laying in the sun for 2 days, and it's got quite an interesting odor on it. But from here, the other creatures nearby probably won't know that the lioness is here and protecting it. So we might sit here a while longer and see what's happening here.
Just look at that. It is absolutely incredible. And as far as I can see, that all falls within the reserve. So it is a vast landscape, but we are gifted with these incredible things. Yeah, the wildcats, the aardvark, you name it. It just keeps on delivering. It's just such an incredible privilege to be out here.
And when you think it could not get better, Mother Nature says, hold on tight.
Oh my word, that is gorgeous. We are cooking on gas this afternoon.
Have a look at what we've got. Look at how this is the best day of my gutting career so far.
We have a baby pangolin. A baby pangolin. We're just gonna go very quietly, very quietly. There's your aardvark. And for those of you who've never seen one, this is one of the big safari specials on any reserve.
I'm just holding my cap because otherwise it's going to blow away, and with this storm coming towards us.
Absolutely beautiful to be able to see water flowing in this volume in the Kalahari. Oh, look at that. You can see the structural component of these flowers. It is perfect. Such a treat to be in and amongst these incredible insects. How lucky are we? You can see how close they are to the vehicle. Very curious.
Oh, you can do it! There we go. We made it over. Whew. But look at that view. That's absolutely stunning.
You can see how they're going into stalking mode. Okay, there we go. This one female is gonna walk straight past the car now. Absolutely stunning. Look at that. I mean, do we just not have the best jobs in the world? That was epic.
Welcome back to the open expanse and very, very dry and denuded soil, everybody. Now, I spoke earlier about a pioneer. Now, the grass you can see in the top left of the screen is the same genus as the one I showed you before. It's the spreading thereon. It's another pioneer, but remember I explained to you how they move in and they make the area more hospitable. Now, I'm just going to jump off and show you how. I've got an umbilical cord I just need to drag with me. Now, the ground here is hard. It's very hard. Very hard. But an animal over here has damaged the ground with its hoof, making it a lot softer underneath. Now, seeds will fall in there. Seeds of the grasses will fall in. And slowly over time, something like this will happen. Now, what will happen afterwards? Look, there's not that much leaf. Not much leaf. Doesn't look very tasty. Lots of seed. And the leaves are very, very, very small. And slowly over time, you can see this area. And I'm just going to pan through there and show you how it goes from this open, expansive an area till eventually the grass starts to take over. So the pioneers actually make the area more suitable, increase the shade, increase the organic material, increase the water holding capacity, increase the availability of space for insects to breed, for water to stay, all that sort of thing. So this right now is a classic example of secondary succession. I'm talking about grass and succession, and I know it might sound a bit confusing to all of you, but there are two types of succession. One is secondary and one is primary. And normally, as I jump back on the car here, when we talk about primary succession, you're talking about areas that have never ever had plant colonization before at all. So we don't really talk about that unless a lava or volcano has exploded and we get some new rock forming, then you'll get primary succession. But anywhere where there's been plants before, the replacement that happens is called secondary succession, which is basically what we're seeing right now. So the pioneers pave the way, they cover the ground, they make it more acceptable for what then becomes the subclimax species, which then make the way for climax species. Rosalind, I'm not sure how many types of plants, but there's at least 90 odd species of grass in the Kruger. Whether they all occur here is hard for me to say. But there are many, many, many different plants, many different trees. And we're going to focus on quite a number of grasses today. But there is a very good understanding or gist of the sort of makeup from one grass to another. And we'll see how this expands over a period of time. Okay, so I took a second grass that you'll see over here. And this is a grass that is called a subclimax. So now compared to the grass I just showed you on the floor, can you see how much leaf material this has got? See how much more shade this will provide on the ground versus the 3-yaw grass I just showed you on the floor, and look how much more leaf it provides for the animals to eat. Okay, so this one is called a subclimax, and this comes in after the first grasses do. And what it does, increases moisture gain, increases organic material. Look at all this organic material here that's falling off the plant. Lots and lots and lots of leaf, but also a fair amount of seeds at the top. And this is a grass that we see very commonly on lawns, on what do we call it, on runways, on cut lines, areas that get managed and burned. This is called signal grass. It's very easy to identify because it almost looks like a whole lot of signboards going this way, New York 2,000 miles, this way, London 4,000 miles, you know, those kind of things. So signal grass, subclimax, and it's tasty to a degree, but it's got far more leaf material and far more shade potential. Look how much, that is what we call a tuft of grass. See how much more material there is in there. I mean, I did rip this up off of the ground, everybody. I did it very sustainably. But you see how much more there is here versus that 3-yaw grass on the floor. So this will then make space and room for a much sort of more shadier area, a much more shade-tolerant grasses, but subclimax. Okay, so that's stage 1. Pioneers, stage 2, subclimax. I'm going to put this one back on the ground where it's going to decompose. I'm actually going to put it right over there, so it's going to go back into the vegetation, into the soil, and sort of form part of the nutrient cycle again, everybody. Because the nutrient cycle is very, very important. Gabby, grasses do grow in most climates. I think there's even types of grasses that grow in the permafrost, but I don't really know. Grasses grow very high. A lot of them are very sort of frost tolerant. Where trees don't grow, grasses grow, so trees are more sort of tropical. But grass is the most abundant vegetation type, as far as I'm aware, on the planet. And all of the major herbivores, all the migrations, all of the large herbivore movements are all to do with grass. All to do with grass. Most of the livestock, all the livestock I reckon around the world are fed on grass. If not the grass itself, they're grain fed, which is also a grass. So it is a very, very, very important element, and very important for us to understand it. Not many people, when you first start talking about grass, go, oh, I'm very interested. They don't. But after this chat today, everybody, I hope we're going to be able to delve deep into your sort of a sense of humor, as well as into your understanding of a vegetation type, or type of vegetation that is vitally important for animal survival. Don't forget, animals feed on the leaves. Weavers make nests out of the leaves. Many, many birds feed on the seeds. Enormous amounts of birds feed on the seeds. And did I mention whiskey before? I think I did. Yeah, I think I did. Beer, hops, barley, hops, malt, corn, grain, maize, wheat. It just goes on. Can you think of another one? Johan, I can't at the moment. Whiskey. I think I've heard that already today, but and obviously you get different sort of types of grasses that like different types of environments. So the grasses we find here, we won't necessarily find up in Johannesburg or up in the Highveld. You get different types of grasses up there, but there are some that can transcend and can transition. It's a very adaptable plant, and those of you who've got a lawn back home will know that grass also likes to be grazed to a degree. Not too short. Hello, James, age 7. You want to know why in winter the grass goes dry and brown? Well, James, here in South Africa, our winter is dry, so there's no rain. In Johannesburg, a lot of the people will water their grass in winter, and it will stay green. Most golf courses, they water their grasses, so it stays green. If you water this area, it will stay green. But it takes a lot of water to water the Kruger National Park, so it goes through wet and dry periods. It is its natural sort of thing. But the grasses don't die. Some of them will. Some of them actually grow into seed, drop the seed, and then they die, and they come back next season. But the dead grass that we see, that dry grass, hornbill busy getting some grass seeds out of the elephant dung, because the elephants are feeding almost primarily on grass at the moment. So some of the grass, you can keep it green all year round, actually, if you water it. But it's a very expensive job to do. But many people do have their lawns green all year round. But in areas of low water and in water restrictions, watering of your lawn is not allowed. So that is why it goes dry. That's also why many trees lose their leaves, because they run out of water. Some countries it's because of the frost and the ice. In some countries it's because there's no water to keep the trees green. So lots of seeds will be transferred through dung, like this elephant dung. Lots of insects. So this hornbill is feeding on little grubs. Flies have landed on there and laid their eggs inside, which turn into little insect larvae. And that is almost primarily grass that elephant has eaten. And it's fermented grass. So fermented grass has gone through the gut enzymes and digestion of the elephant, and guinea fowl and francolins will actually eat that grass itself, because fermenting, a lot of people around the world are actually into fermented foods. Off he goes. I'm actually going to go up to that little bit of dung and grab some for you so you can see. I'm not scared to get my hands dirty today. It's only grass out of an elephant's bottom. Let's see what seeds we can find still available as I just unclip myself for 1 second and pull my umbilical cord along. Okay, what have we got? Okay, maybe I'll get a stick. There we go. Little stick. It's still quite wet. Oh, there's lots of bugs and insects there, all burying that into the ground. I don't know if you can see any of that, Johan. It's all wet over here. There's grubs and beetles and all sorts of things. But I'm going to bring some of this back to the car. It'll be easier to see. I don't know how many physical seeds come through with the elephant dung, but this time of year, elephants are feeding a lot on grass. They are feeding on some of the leaves. Let me plug myself in so that I can hear Elton whispering sweet nothings in my ear. Okay, so here, I'm going to hold my hands very still. Here are some beetles. Can you see the beetle there? So many insects will actually live their life in elephant dung. And this time of year, elephant dung is full of grass. There's a stick. There's a grass stalk. So that hasn't been very well digested. Lots of cellulose. Now remember that word, cellulose. We'll talk about it. That is definitely not grass. That is a stick. But look, there's a beetle. He's loving life inside this elephant dung. And there actually are some grass seeds there. They haven't been digested. You see that? So some seeds, many plants around the world actually require going through the digestive system of an animal to be able to germinate. Not all of them, but some of them require it. Very, very important. There's another stick. A little bit of bark. Lots of grass, but more seeds. There we go. Oh, look at all those insects. Look at all of them living inside this elephant dung. How marvelous. Without that elephant dung on the floor here, none of these would probably have any life. They wouldn't be able to breed. Many of these insects have got very short life expectancy, very short lifetime. They lay eggs, they turn into beetles, or after the larvae, and then off they go again. So grass, cellulose. We'll talk about cellulose. Don't let me forget about cellulose, Johan. Okay. Very, very important. And then there's some sticks. Okay, so a little bit of grass, a little bit of leaves, but mainly this time of year we are... Just put it back with the rest. We are looking at grass for the elephants because it's very tasty, it's very green, it's very juicy. Patsy, they will, to a degree. Some of them will bury it, some of them will take it away. The dung beetles take it away. Some of them live inside the dung, and some of these elephant balls will stay like that, and they'll be able to actually live inside there for a little while, a few days, a week, perhaps, until the termites eventually get back to it. If the insects don't deal with it now, the termites will deal with it later. So nothing's wasted. And once again, where does all of it go to? Back into the soil, back into the nutrient cycle. So very, very important, the nutrient cycle, everybody. The plants are able to access the nutrients from the soil. They then bring that up through the roots because the rainfall falls into the ground. It dilutes or it picks up the salts and the nutrients, and then the plant's able to pull that up. And then the grasses produce the greenness through photosynthesis, and they are called producers. The grasses produce the food, and then the consumers, primary consumers such as elephants and buffaloes and rhinos and all of that, are able to eat that and digest that. Then the secondary consumers, which are the likes of us, and the likes of, well, some of us are actually primary consumers if we're vegetarian exclusively, but then secondary consumers eat the primary consumers. So it is, and eventually all of us die. Our poo goes into the soil, our bones go into the soil, our urine all goes back, and once again, what happens to it? You guessed it, it goes back into the soil, it comes back up as grass and fruit and vegetation once again, and the cycle continues. The cycle is a loop, everybody. The cycle is a loop, and together with the soil and the nutrients, the most important factor is this over here in front of us, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the water. So Lottie, I don't know about elephant grass. I think elephant grass is it's an Indian Asian grass. I think it's like papyrus, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know it very well. I know in India the elephants feed almost exclusively on tall reed-like papyrus-like vegetation. That's why it's very easy to make paper out of Indian elephant dung. In South Africa, making paper out of elephant dung here is doable, but there's lots of sticks. So it's there's a lot of bark every now and again. But I don't actually know elephant grass very, very well. So looking at the watering hole, looking at rivers and estuaries and wetlands, all of the reeds and the sedges that we find along our sort of coastal, inland coastal areas, all they're designed to absorb excessive nutrients, because all of the estuaries flowing downstream, all the rivers flowing to the ocean are loaded with soil and sediment and nutrients. And the wetlands, which are across the world, unfortunately most wetlands have been destroyed. It's only 5% of the world's wetlands intact, are there to slow down the movement of water, slow down flooding, and to increase the absorption of nutrients back into the plants. And we've seen the increase in flooding around the world. Have we not noticed on the news how many more floods are happening every single year? Wetlands are supposed to slow down floodwaters, but unfortunately, wetlands are also sinks of nutrients and organic material, and they are very, very, very successful or very useful places for growing food. Which a lot of people have done around the world. Very moist areas, lots of rain, lots of liquid in the ground, lots of nutrients, beautifully productive. But unfortunately, those areas are designed to slow things down. And when we clear an open area, we remove that potential for it to do its ecological function. And ecological ecosystem services around the world, such as flood regulation, nutrient absorption, pollination, lightning strikes which nitrify the area. All of these are natural services provided by the environment that we take for granted, and you can never package on your product. You can never say, oh, it cost this many bees to produce this fruit, because that ecological service is never taken into account on a cost per cost basis. The floodwaters and how they are slowed down and nutrients recycled are not taken into account, and we definitely need to move to a different economic system where environmental sort of factors are taken into account properly, because they are unfortunately being destroyed. I don't think anybody watching the show can disagree with me in that regard. That's why all of you are watching this show, because you have an affinity with the natural wild world. And unfortunately, the world around us is being torn apart, and I think it's time that we all said enough is enough, don't you? Well, everybody, I'm not going to stop this afternoon. I'm going to continue with my discussions, but let's send you over to Tswalu Kalahari for Maritz to say good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a beautiful afternoon here at Tswalu Kalahari. There's some rain threatening still, which is great. We always enjoy the rain, especially after this drought. We cannot complain about any drop of rain falling. So we'll have to see how long we're going to be able to stay with you. But yeah, guys, we had some pretty decent rain during the day. By the way, my name is Moritz. Behind the camera, we've got Morgan. So yeah, we've had some pretty decent rain during the day, and with that, it made our life a little bit more difficult, just because all of the tracks has been washed away. So we decided to come back to the site of where we found that female lion with a den site this morning. Yesterday morning, I mean. So we're going to follow up on that, see if the cubs are out and the mom is around and so on. Spend some time with them, and then we'll move on and see if we can find something else. We're fairly close to the den site at the moment, but we are going to be passing behind some mountains, so we might lose the signal not too long from now. But as soon as we are at the den site, the signal should be better again. Then we'll show you guys what we see. But yeah, like I said, beautiful, beautiful day here. Around the middle of the day, we had very hard rain, so much so that I don't think there was enough time for all the water to sink, and a lot of it flushed into like the drainage systems and so on, which is great because that also gets the fountains going and all of those things, but all in all, a beautiful day. Now you can see certain places the sun is starting, or the blue sky coming through, which, for as far as the rain is concerned, is not necessarily a sign that it's clearing up, because as soon as the sun breaks through, it's going to heat up a little bit, and with all the moisture in the air, that's going to just build more clouds and most likely rain again. So we'll have to see how the afternoon goes. But like I said, we're always happy for the rain that comes. After seeing how the bush has suffered for the past couple of years, we are never complaining about rain again. But yeah, just to come back to the den site of that female, it's actually a very well chosen den site. In amongst the rocks, lots of hiding spots for the little cubs, and it's just the perfect little spot, not too far away from water, close to where there's normally good game activity, so it's not too far away for her to move, to be able to hunt quickly and feed and return to the cubs without having to physically drag the kill closer or so, which they won't do in any way. So yeah, the Southern Pride really has a couple of very good established den sites which they use to move the cubs around in between. So yeah, we'll have to see. We're actually very close to where we're supposed to go in now. I'm just looking for the 2-track quickly, and then we'll go closer. There we go.
Imagine having your own secluded African bush home where you and your friends can enjoy the ultimate safari experience. If you sign up to be a WildEarth explorer, this could become a reality. Tumbeta House is located in the heart of Djuma Private Game Reserve, the home of WildEarth. You could win a chance to stay at this intimate wilderness retreat, offering you the rare and highly sought-after privilege of your own home in the bush. The prize includes 3 nights for 6 people and includes daily game drives, a chance to see the WildEarth camp, and have dinner with one of our guides. Sign up to be a WildEarth Explorer before the end of February 2021, and you could be heading to Djuma, the place that we call home. Available dates are limited, so terms and conditions apply.
Being a safari driver requires some serious multitasking ability. You've got to be able to talk, look at the road, steer, and occasionally get the vehicle into the right gear.
Do not crash into any trees. Oh, that's a dozy.
Just jump into the car and hope for the best, and you'll see where it takes you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm surprised they're moving as fast as that didn't go well. Who is the best driver? Well, me, of course, although some of the cam ops might disagree. Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for WildEarth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on WildEarth.
We have a baby pangolin, This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
So we have left the lioness, and we were on our way to go look and see if we can find 2 lionesses from this morning, and then we found this lone elephant. Not a very big elephant. Have a look at the ears going. Every now and again it's a vigorous flap. Now, I said earlier on that it is quite hot, and even now it is extremely hot, even though it's already quite late in the afternoon. And that elephant, with each flap, he's cooling his body down, and especially the surface area behind the ears, which you know is very tricky to see from here, but if you look carefully you'll notice some sharp ridges or some sharp lines going down the back of the ear, and those are the big veins that is filled with blood. So gradually that area cools down as the elephant moves its ears like that, and eventually all the blood that gets pumped through the ears get cooled down. JJ, that's a tough question to answer. I think the answer would differ from area to area, what grass the elephant prefers to eat. I guess it would depend on the area that the elephant's found in. In this particular area, from what I can notice here, and this is only from what I've seen, it looks like the elephants have mainly been eating the buffalo grass, which is a grass that's very high in protein. And it grows in the shady areas like this. You can see the tall trees in the background, and it looks quite dense, like almost like a forest back there. And that's because it's a riverine forest. And this is right on the edge of the bank of the Timbavati. So the best possible place for this elephant to be. There's water down in the riverbed, even though he's probably getting quite a lot of his moisture from the grass at the moment. And these long stands of buffalo grass here, everywhere in the shady spots around the clusters of trees or smaller shrubs. Also, the other thing about this elephant, the fact that he's on his own, well, that's why I think it's a he. And He doesn't look very large. I saw earlier it looked like there's some secretions from his temporal glands, and I was wondering to myself, an elephant this time of the year, this age, is probably under a bit of social pressure from larger elephants in the area. Maybe that's part of why he's moving on his own. There's a lot of elephant bulls in Must at the moment. Yeah. There's also a bee-eater I saw that's between us and the elephant. It looks like a little bee-eater, and you'll notice it comes back to the same perch every time. And that's another thing, and that's why it's so much, like there's actually so much happening in these denser areas along the riverbanks. It's not very easy to spot stuff. I had tracks of a leopard not far back, a few hundred meters on this road that I'm on at the moment, and I can hear some squirrels calling in the area, but it will be extremely hard for us to actually spot anything in this long grass. But there's a lot of small little flying insects within this grass at the moment, small little critters moving about. There's also a lot of water here, and large animals like that elephant moving through the area feeding disturbs them. And then we have these little birds often following them. Sarah, you're asking if an elephant knows what plants are medicinal. I'm sure they have a knowledge of what benefits them in a certain way. What might help with a pain, say, such as a toothache or tummy ache. I think seasoned elephants that's very experienced do pick up on these qualities in certain food sources, and they will definitely pass it on to their young. I guess that will also differ from one area to the next, and it's probably not something that they will always consciously go and look for. I think it's something that they probably realize along the way, if they do. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure, actually. It's a really good question, I think. But we're going to leave this elephant. We'll continue along the shady banks of the Timbavati, and in the meantime, we'll go over to Steve at Pridelands, and he's found something very interesting.
Good luck around the Timbavati River, Yapi. We are at the bottom of a dam, so basically the overflow of a river, and down in the sort of drainage line that we would call it. It's not a major river depression, but it is a drainage line. We get lots more tall trees, lots more shade, and with the shade comes a sort of dominance of certain types of grasses, and in this case it's a climax species. Yes, I told you I was going to get there. I told you I'd eventually get to the climax grasses. And this particular one is known as the Panicum maximum. It is pretty much the dominant grass we see down here. And the reason why we find it down here in these shady areas is because of the shade, because of the nutrients in the soil, because as I spoke about before, rivers drain nutrients downstream to the ocean, but they don't all just wash down to the ocean. It's a very slow progression. So down these little depressions, there's lots of nutrients, the soil's quite deep, there are lots of tall trees, lots of alluvial sediment, which leads to nutrients, which leads to lots of Panicum maximum, also known as the blue buffalo grass or white buffalo grass. There's a couple of different names, and that is one that's been stripped almost completely clean of seeds, as birds like to eat this grass. Very beautiful seeds. I like to eat it myself. And being a climax grass, this is sort of the end stage in the cycle from pioneer to subclimax to climax. You guessed it. But it is not a linear progression, everybody. It is a cycle. This area still has the potential to be burned. It has the potential to be overgrazed. It has the potential to be disturbed. And what happens? It'll go all the way back to the beginning. So it is in flux. These areas are not, as in a perfect world, it will go from pioneer to climax and stay there. But that is not how it works. It's constantly changing, constantly evolving. But essentially what grassland succession can lead to in areas of much higher rainfall and areas of no fire is this climax grass will eventually lead to trees taking over, and then eventually will lead to forest succession. So essentially that is the whole cycle of plant succession. It starts with a very open, disturbed area. The grasses are the first ones to colonize, the pioneers, the subclimax. Certain sort of pioneer trees can start to move in. As the pioneer trees start to take over, the nitrogen-fixing trees you've spoken about before, many of those legumes, they start to sort of add more shade. The grasses become climax grasses, the trees become subclimax trees, or sort of understory trees. You start getting shade-tolerant trees moving through. Eventually, over a period of time, you have a forest. So if we just go to the dashboard, we'll just have a little look at this particular grass here, the Panicum maximum. And here are two sort of stages of it. Here is the normal inflorescence that's popping out, and here is a brand new one that's growing. Okay, so grasses grow from their inflorescence, and they also grow from the base. They're called basal growth. That's why grasses get grazed. They actually get stimulated. If you cut them too short, they don't like it. But this inflorescence is sometimes easily popped out like that, and it's very, very tasty. Very, very juicy. Very tasty grass. And when those seeds are ripe, the birds love them. I like to eat them as well. But I just grabbed a handful, everybody, of grass from the bottom. I didn't grab the entire plant. And have a look at all of this juicy, luscious green leaf. This is what the buffaloes come down into the drainage line and use their tongues for, to pull that leaf material. Now, climax grasses are sort of described by their sort of amounts of seeds, of course, but lots of leaf, because they want to produce leaf. They are very, very growing grasses. They are producing far more shade. You can almost not even see the ground underneath here, and then all of the organic material that is being deposited on the ground is obviously benefiting, once again, the nutrient cycle, because all the insects, there's even more area for insects to grow and to proliferate and to do their thing. And slowly but surely over time, all that nutrient is recycled. And more animals come in, more dung, more urine is distributed, more disturbance, and so the cycle continues. So beautiful, beautiful grass. And we'll discuss it a little bit more as we go along. Very nice. I hope you're all enjoying our grass discussion this afternoon. We've been enjoying spending a bit of time in the shade, because we can do that when it's hot like this. We can focus on grasses. We can park in the shade. And when you park in the shade, well, you don't get as burnt. But what we're going to go do now is find a nice sort of open sandy patch. And I'm going to run through a little summary of what we've discussed here and show you how it goes from one to the next. Bobby, I'm not sure, but some of the grasses out here, all grasses are stimulated by water, but some grasses in the world obviously need less than others. But I'm not really sure what grasses need little water. Out here, the cycle goes pioneer through to climax, and nutrients versus shade will affect the different species. So out here, they all get very similar amounts, but these grasses are also very drought tolerant. So they will sort of struggle when the droughts arrive, but they seem to bounce back very, very quickly. And how that happens is many of them have got seeds that are fed on by ants, and ants take them down into their burrows, into the ground, and then when times are good again, they re-emerge. So all of these plants that we see have evolved seasonal cycles. Oh, see, we've even, it's gone. There was a squirrel busy eating something from an elephant dropping. I'm just going to try and get up this little bump. So now, what is the other purpose of grasses, everybody? Now, Their roots are obviously very important in that they anchor the soil, don't they? Oh, guinea fowl. There we go, running in the road. Anchoring of the soil is a vitally important part. You can see that where the road itself is, it's compacted due to the road, but water runs along the road. There we go, there's a bit of erosion from the back of that guinea fowl, been dust bathing. So water runs down the road and the water picks up momentum and it drags soil with it. And so grass and roots of trees is very important in holding the soil together, not just the movement of water from uphill, but also raindrops. A raindrop falling on the ground displaces soil like that. So having vegetation slows down the movement and the destructive force. Sorry, the guinea fowl have got babies. They've got the smallest little babies. I hope you can get it there, Johan. Little babies before we send you to Phinda. On the left, Oh. Can we do? Let's try. Sorry, one second. They've got the smallest little clutch of baby guinea fowl. I've discussed that these birds will breed again. Just going to get over this bump and we're going to see them just around the corner. We're going to get them in the open now. Hold on 1 second and then we're going to send you to Phinda. I don't think I've seen baby guinea fowl that small before. Yes, there we go, running in the open. Oh, it is. How cute are those? Oh my goodness, those are so brand new. The guinea fowl have bred again. You beautiful little birds, you. Oh my word, that has just made my absolute day, everybody. It's made my day. Okay, well. Did you see that? Oh. Okay, Elton, thank you. I'm sorry I got so excited there for guinea fowl babies, but they were very cute. But I think now that we've seen them, we are going to be sending you over to andBeyond Phinda.
Good afternoon and welcome to andBeyond Phinda, where we've just come across this lovely journey of giraffe. You can see quite a number of them, all actually feeding at the moment. There's a couple of younger giraffe on the right hand side that seem to be staring down at a puddle. Maybe they're trying to examine whether it's worth drinking from there. It looks quite muddy from my angle, so I don't know if they will be down there. The adults kind of walk straight past it, but maybe with the inexperience of these youngsters, they still just want to check it out. I don't think it'll taste too good though. My name's Pete, and behind the camera today we have Simon. And we've got such a lovely afternoon here, quite nice and hot. We've been out looking for cheetah the whole afternoon. Unfortunately, haven't got too lucky in that respect just yet, but very happy to have found these beautiful giraffe. I was trying to count them earlier, but every time I count them, it seems like another one just pops its head up. But I think I've got to 9, which is really, really cool to see. We also had some on the left-hand side as well. Then maybe we can go and see if we can find them a little bit later. You can see them all just feeding earlier. They were just standing and just chewing their cud. Often when it's really hot, they won't spend too much time actually picking the leaves off. It takes a lot more energy. So they'll just stand there and digest their food. They've got multiple stomachs. And so as they're resting, what they do is they'll bring up a little bit of food, re-chew it, and then send it back down at that long neck of theirs. And this is just to get every little bit of nutrients that they can out of the grass or the leaves that they've been feeding on. If you look at giraffe dung, don't know if I can find any around here, but it's a really, really small little pellet. And compared to the size of their body, you'd expect quite a bit you'd find quite a bit, you'd expect it to be quite a bit bigger than it is. Blessing, they get to about 18 feet, so 3 or 4 meters. Really, really big. It's not too often that you see one that's height, but it would be really, really amazing if we did. I'm trying to scan to see if we have got any big bulls here, and it doesn't seem like we do. We've got some younger bulls, but one of the ways of telling the difference between males and females is if you look at their horns, the females have hair all the way to the top of their horns, and the males, on the other hand, have like a bald patch on top. So if we try and identify, the males also have quite a thicker horn. Obviously at this moment we can't really see between their legs or underneath their belly, which is obviously probably the easiest way. So the other way we do it is by looking at their horns. Often the case, if you see a fully grown bull as well, he'll be quite a bit darker than the females, but that's also related to genetics. You can see this younger one that's just looking at us, is quite fascinated by us. Just turned his head. And there's a beautiful red-billed oxpecker on its side there. And quite interestingly, 2 days ago, we saw a yellow-billed oxpecker on Phinda, and that's really, really, really rare to see. There haven't been a lot of records. I've read something that there's only been about 9 records in the last 60 years, so it's a really amazing thing that they are starting to kind of increase their range. Earlier we were speaking about the different kind of colors of the giraffe. This is the ones that are slightly darker, slightly lighter. The one on the left there is quite a light female. Lindy, that's quite a good question. They aren't seasonal breeders, so they can have their calves at any time. It won't just be similar to the impala or wildebeest or warthogs, where they all have it just before the rains. Giraffe and zebra, they kind of have it at any time of the year. They'll come into estrus when they have sexual maturity, when they reach the right age, and then they'll have a youngster when they get into estrus, or that's when they'll mate, and quite a long time afterwards, about 22 months, then they'll have a youngster of their own. See the one on the right there, just trying to get maybe a tick or something off its tail. You can imagine it must be quite annoying to have a tick on your fly swatter there. Also when they're young like this, the hair on their tails isn't very long, so they can't quite reach where the tail of an adult could reach. Becomes very useful, especially in summer when there are lots of flies around, and it can be quite frustrating for them. Look at that one there, just on the right hand side at the back. Shame it's taking off the very last leaves of that buffalo thorn. Doesn't look like that tree has too many leaves left. I'm sure if all of those leaves go, that tree's going to take a lot of strain. That buffalo thorn's got really, really nasty thorns, but it's amazing. It's one of the giraffe's favorites, and they don't seem to mind it too much. But we're going to send you off to Trish, who hopefully has some interesting things around the waterhole.
I wish there were slightly more interesting things going around the waterhole or happening around the watering hole. We're at Buffelshoek Dam, and ordinarily we see heaps and heaps of bird life, but it seems that the dam is so high and so full of water that the birds don't have much of a shore to walk along. So it's actually quite quiet. Have a listen. Distant, distant calls of woodland kingfisher. Long-billed crombeck. Of course, our hippo popping its head up. And the Cape turtle dove in the background. Can a scene out in the bush ever be complete without a Cape turtle dove singing sadly in the background? I don't think so. So we just have our one hippo on that side of the dam, but I must say that he's been quite entertaining. I haven't gone past Vuyatela Dam to see if the most entertaining hippo that has ever existed in the wild is still there. The one that plays with the stick, because this one looks like it could also be quite playful. Keeps opening its mouth up. But if he has a stick, then we'll know for sure. I think, what were you guys calling it? Dewey, I think, was the name of the hippo at Vuyatela Dam. But being so full, anytime I've seen hippos here this wet season, and I saw two yesterday, and they were both on that side of the dam. So it's obviously the area where it's a little bit shallower and easier for them to bob and bounce off the bottom of the dam. It's a beautiful scene though, isn't it? Oh. Love it. There's really well positioned vital parts of the head right at the top, so those nostrils can stick out. Just the tip of the nose can stick out to allow it to breathe, while the rest of the body can be submerged and stay nice and cool and nice and hydrated, so that skin doesn't get dried out. Crack. Can be quite nasty when that does happen. Sometimes you'll even find that hippo cows with calves will drool on their little ones to make sure that their skin doesn't get all cracked and dry in the dry season, at least. Just turn my game drive radio down. Look at that. Very, very effective. Hi, Candy Girl. You have a cool question. You'd like to know if the hippos in the winter will still spend all or a lot of their time in the water. Yes, hippos are amphibious. So hippos will always spend time in the water. If there isn't water around, you're not going to find hippos. And in the dry season, especially if it's a particularly severe dry season and there's no water around, hippos are going to move to find water. So you're not going to find them lurking in the bushes for extended periods just because there's no water around. As soon as they figure out that, you know what, this water is getting really low and now half of my body is sticking out because this actual dam. We have had picnics on the shores here with there being just a tiny spot of mud really in the middle of it. And still there'd be a hippo trying to use it, but it was just not sufficient. But that hippo would have at that point, if not earlier, moved away from here and found a more permanent water source. So for us here, if it's a really bad dry season and consecutive years of bad rains, this dam would dry up. So this hippo may go to Chitwa. Chitwa is a fairly permanent water source. I haven't seen that dam without any water. It may have been low, but still a good amount of water, especially for hippos. But the only time that they're leaving the water is when they're going to feed. And that'll usually be in the evenings, but not always. If we go up to Kayamanzi and Buffelshoek on a nice overcast day, you'll see them out and about. But their skin is very sensitive and they're adapted to an amphibious lifestyle. So without water, hippos can't survive. Very nice, calm scene here at Buffelshoek Dam. Although no, there we go. Although no loud bird calls, I like the calming faintness of the ones in the distance.
February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. WildEarth Explorers. It's in your nature.
Sometimes love wants to make you sing. And sometimes love wants to make you bow and fan your wings to your bow. For the southern yellow-billed hornbill, these are signs that love is in the air. These birds are destined for a season of monogamy at least. Breeding pairs are in it for the survival of their chicks. But before love commences, the male needs to woo his valentine with food in the form of nuptial gifts.
I'm Nikki here at andBeyond in Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the WildEarth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next WildEarth drive.
Guys, have a look at what we've got. This is better than my birthday. Look at that. This is the first time that I ever see cubs this small. This is so special. This has officially just become my best sighting of all times.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
There's a grounding earthiness to this place that we feel in our ancestors. It's a place where, believe it or not, we evolved as a human species, and anyone who's come to Africa will understand that. The connectivity that the continent has to the person and to people's souls is next level. I'm thoroughly looking forward to taking you on your next adventure when we explore all the small and big things.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth.
Well, everybody, if you weren't sure where you were, you saw the grass on the screen and you immediately, oh no, where's he gone? Goodness gracious, he just ballooned. Everybody, this spider has just ballooned. He's now going to start making a web. Now, what I find incredible is I actually plucked this grass stalk because I wanted to discuss inflorescence types. And this spider moved, and look how camouflaged it is to this feather-top chloris. He is incredible, isn't he? And he moves his body in a way that mimics the shape of the grass. Now he's looking a little bit strange compared to the grass, but he put his bum in the air. His bum blew some silk. The silk is now attached to my windscreen. A second one has just gone now. And then he ran up it. And now he's starting to build that web. So now, not only is the grass ecologically important for all the other functions we spoke about, but many organisms will actually, and have evolved, to live on them. I mean, how many spiders do you think you've gone past out here in the world when this fellow, I only noticed because I managed to pick that one piece of grass and he popped up. I have no idea what type of grass, what type of spider it is. If anybody knows, please do let me know. What a fantastic find. So the objective of this discussion was to talk about the different types of grasses, the different types of inflorescence, and how we identify them, because there are so many different types, and it's why this time of year, we use these grasses for identification, because they are flowering. And grasses all flower with these inflorescence, which is essentially their flower, although we call it inflorescence, and it is all wind pollinated. They produce a variety of different types of seeds. The seeds themselves are either blown through the wind for distribution, they're either eaten by birds, or as discussed before, they go underground and are taken by ants. And some seeds, actually, or plants, produce a very specific type of seed that gives the ant food without it eating the seed. So when different fires or heat intensities arise, those seeds will actually come back after drought. Obviously, going underground is beneficial for a seed because you're not prone to being eaten by rodents. Rodents eat lots and lots of seeds. Obviously, many of them are designed to be eaten that way, or that is part of the sort of package. But wind, water, ants, many of them are stimulated by fire. But isn't this a marvelous spider over here? Okay, so while we've got your attention wrapped on the front there, we'll show you the other type, which you've already seen. It's the awn. You can see it there. There's the seed. There's the 3 awns. So this is wind pollinated, also activated by water to help to possibly drill in to the ground or into animal fur. And then one of the coolest seed pods around, everybody, which is completely water done. And I have been waiting to do one of these for some time. And I know many of you out there are probably thinking, oh goodness, not this one again. Johan has never seen it before. So if you've never seen it before, please just sit back and enjoy the wonderment and beauty of what we have got here called speargrass. And I'm just going to moisten it with my rain out of my mouth. Okay, are you ready? And then I'm going to put it on the dashboard right there next to that one. As the train decides to go past. Goodness, I found a dud. You can probably hear the train. Watch it go. Maybe he needs a friend. I'm having a problem with my grass. He's going. Shantae wants to know if there's a grass that animals like to eat more. Well, definitely the ones that have got more leaf and are digestible. Now let's have a look, see if this is going to do the trick. I'll talk about the digestibility of grasses just now, as we see if these spear grasses are going to play. Come on, fellows, you're nice and wet now. Now the objective of this awn is to start to spiral, and the seed is this very sharp spear over here. And what that does is that this spiraling awn, which is completely failing me today, is actually designed to bury this very sharp seed here in the ground. So it's a very useful strategy for getting your seed out of harm's way. He's going there. Have a look at him. Starting to spiral. Yes, come on, my friend. So basically, the seed pod itself has dried. It's lost its water. They look like this when they are wet, much, much longer. And as they dry out, they sort of start to twist. And as water returns to the cells of that spear grass seed, it's then designed to spiral and turn that spear grass seed into the ground. A marvelous, marvelous design. But it's obviously not playing very good ball with us today, but that's okay, because it doesn't always work. And I thought I would be lucky today, and I have not been. But there is the seed. There it is. The awn serves no purpose other than to distribute that seed into the ground. Okay, well, we're going to quickly send you to Trish with some mongoose, and then come back and answer Shantae's question properly.
I have found one of my favorite little things out here. Look at that sky. None other than a dwarf mongoose. I feel like whenever we have these kind of sightings, it's like I'm checking them out, they're checking me out. It's like a stakeout. No, Natal Spurfowl, you're gonna walk right into. Oh, it's a Crested Franklin. They're just staring at us, everyone. There's two of them on the road. Just kind of checking us out. I love just watching them, and you'll be able to hear in the background the sounds that they make, because it seems like we're actually between the group, as if we've stopped with the group split, some behind us, some in front of us. I love that I can hear them. Oh, right down here. He's tucking his head down to look at me. Did you hear that? Just stand by, please, Tristan. I can hear them moving close by. With these guys, if you just give them a little bit of time and you keep your voice a little low, you'll find that they will come out, and they tend to be a little bit curious about you. Not terribly, though, and also quite cautious. But they'll still start to come out of the woodwork. Look, I can see 4 now. Gee, you say you love how they run? I love how they sit. But there you go, one's running just for you. Oh, look at them. Look at them. I'm not sure if you can hear this. Oh. Bit of some smell identification going on there. Now they also have an anal gland, and they scent mark using it. But it also identifies or helps them identify each other and who is in their business or their family group. Oh, play fight, play fight. Mindy, you'd like to know, oh, check it out, if these mongoose eat the same things as meerkats. Mongoose and meerkats are related. They're both in, look at that one. They're both in the family Herpestidae, and they're both in the order Carnivora, so that means that they are carnivores. So will they be eating the same things? Yes, they will both be eating other animals. Oh, how cute. So you would have seen in Tswalu, the meerkats, they go after crickets, especially those almond crickets that are abundant at certain times of the year. And a mongoose will go after similar things. They especially like scorpions. Oh, we have some mating going on. That looks more like asserting dominance than mating. Within a mongoose society, there's an alpha pair. And considering these two are having a go at a fight, it's more likely that was a symbol or a sign of dominance, as opposed to trying to conceive a little mongoose. Mongoose are also notorious for taking things that would usually harm others, like snakes, scorpions, as I mentioned, spiders. So fierce, fierce little creatures. I am on a main road, and I see a vehicle approaching in front of me. Let's hope that they stop. Hey Spaz, you'd like to know if mongoose have a hierarchy amongst themselves? They have a same-sex hierarchy. So between the males and between the females, there's a hierarchy. And there'll be an alpha male and an alpha female. Those are the ones who will mate to produce more offspring. Beta females and beta males can also reproduce. And a lot of the time, if they do, the alpha female might take those pups. But we often hear about how rigid it is. That she will kill them, the alpha female will kill them. But research has actually found it's less rigid than that. And it's more likely that she'll actually adopt the little ones. So adorable. Well, I think they are on the cute meter right up there, but apparently Ngala's got something cuter.
Now we've moved away from the riverbed, and in a very large open area we've come across this male ostrich on his own. other ostriches or actually any other animals nearby. You can see its head going up and down, and notice the wings are slightly open. And with the neck and the head going up and down, you see clearly that every time it's bringing it up, it's having a good look out. There is a slight pause. Which, if you have to ask me, is an indication that the bird is focusing and trying to take in what's happening around it. I guess it looks quite nervous that way. Now, one might ask why it would be nervous. It's such a large bird. It's got quite a lot of height. But if I was this ostrich with these grasses as tall as it is at the moment, I would also be nervous. There's been quite a lot of large predators moving through this area specifically. And an ostrich would make a perfectly good meal. That is, of course, if they can catch it. The open wings, I guess that's just to help the ostrich cool down at this point. It's a very, very hot day and there's a slight breeze going. Carla Lee, this is indeed very lovely. I haven't seen an ostrich on Ngala myself in quite a while. They are known to be seen in this particular part. I think we're about halfway into the central part of the reserve, and from here the soils change a little bit, or the majority of the soils this particular area is gabbro soils, and it is characterized by clearings like this one with tall grasses and knobthorn trees. Most of the trees you see behind the ostrich, those are all knobthorns. This is quite a diverse habitat. There's a lot of birds here at the moment. And then also large mammals. Although this afternoon, only the ostrich and a few European rollers. You can see the way it's moving. It is moving quite quickly. And it stands out. Its dark plumage, long neck, especially on a flat surface like this where it's quite easy to see something above the horizon. It makes it not too tricky to spot. Olivia, if I'm not mistaken, ostriches have been clocked at speeds as high as 70 kilometers an hour. I'm going to move slightly forward because it's moving off into the distance, and even though you can still see it for a while away, or for a distance away, it's moving behind a line of trees. It's actually using its cover quite well. But it is a fast runner, but it's also it's a walker. It's a bird that walks quite a lot. During the daytime, it spends a lot of time moving about and foraging. And what I find quite interesting is I know they do eat grass, but what I'm noticing is their head's just going down into the grass. So it's not completely disappearing. So it doesn't look like it's moving down below, trying to pluck out grasses or trying to get to something in the grass. It's actually stripping off the flowering parts of the grass. What a unique bird indeed. At one point, a couple of years ago, we had a male and a few females that we used to see in this particular area regularly. In fact, not far from where this ostrich is, there used to be a nest. I know that female had surprising success with her young. Nicanova, do predators hunt ostriches? Indeed, they do. The lion, the leopard, even the cheetah will go after them. Not sure about hyena, but I'll never count the hyena out. It must be quite a formidable prey to take down. I mean, unless they're able to sneak up onto it in this long grass and maybe pounce on it. And in open space, I'm sure the ostrich will be quick enough to run away. Or spot the danger from up high and then make its way out of the area quickly. Now you can only see the head popping out every now and again. It's almost as if it's completely disappeared along the grass line. So I think as this ostrich is moving off, we'll probably leave it here. We'll continue, we'll look and check in this area, see if we might find some signs of anything else. And we'll head over towards Phinda, where they have a tower of giraffe.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda, where we actually were moving off and we found another journey. I know you can only see one for now, but they're quite spread out. And I must apologize and go back to, we were talking about how tall the males get, and my conversion from feet to meters was not so good. So 18 feet is actually 5.5 meters, not 4.5. So yeah, but anyway, so this is quite a young bull. You can see we were mentioning the horns earlier. This one's got quite thick horns and balding on top. But there are also some zebra in frame as well. We often see zebra and giraffe in similar areas. The prominent trees that giraffe will feed on will often have beautiful luscious grass in between, which obviously the zebra would like to feed on. But I remember earlier we were speaking about the dung of giraffe, and as we were driving off I actually managed to find some. We were speaking about how small it is and how that they are ruminants, so that they feed over and over and chew over and over. So here's a small little pellet, and this is from a giraffe, and we can see quite a few of them. If you look on the end here, it's got like quite a sharp point, so that would be the front, and that's the part that comes off first, but it fits in quite well. If you can see there, it almost is like a groove, so when they're coming out it's almost like that. But if we break this one open now, you can see inside there's all this finely chewed up leaves, Quite amazing. You can see little bits of stuff that was once a leaf. So that's what a giraffe dung looks like, for all of you that haven't seen it before. Quite interesting. And I did try and look for the driest dung that I could find. I know you guys might think it's quite gross, but yeah, it's not. It's very, very dry, quite old, so don't worry about it. And I've got some hand sanitizer for just now. Look at these zebra now. They're looking very, very nice and clean. We've had such big rains recently, and after the rains, you can imagine the zebra don't have too many places to find shelter, so often they'll just stand under a tree or even out in the open, but just get a nice clean. And they're looking, that white is so white. Often after a few days, and they'll be rolling in the mud again. You can see the one just on the right hand side's got quite a bit darker, so he's maybe found a little patch of soil that like to rub on. Often they do that just to get parasites off or ticks. If you look at this one on the left, this the giraffe, on the left, slowly make its way towards these two females that are just to the right. And we actually saw the male doing the phlegm and grimace, which is when they take a little bit of urine from the female and they breathe it in over a special organ at the back of their throat, and this organ just tells them all the details about the female, whether she's ready to mate with, and all the important things that male needs to know. But as we were mentioning earlier, he is quite a young one, so we wouldn't expect him to actually end up being the one that's mating if she wasn't estrus. I'm sure one of the larger bulls around, the more dominant bulls, would chase him away, and we actually saw one of the females chase him away. So that was quite interesting. It'll be quite cool if he decides to try it again, but he might be a bit intimidated. But Giselle, back to your question, that's absolutely correct. So every single giraffe has a different pattern, and it's almost similar to our fingerprints. What is exactly the same, each unique and diverse. And not only the pattern, but also the colors. So some will be slightly darker, some will be lighter, and there are multiple different species of giraffe. So each giraffe species also has a very distinctive pattern and outline. But these are called the southern giraffe. Such a beautiful scene here, just to sit here and listen. There's some rattling testiculars calling in the side. I even heard a grey go-away bird, which is quite unusual for andBeyond Phinda.
When on safari, there is nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a WildEarth explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Riverbeds are a great way to find water and look for places where elephant have excavated hollows. You can then dig into the sand, and after a couple of feet you should find damp sand, which then can be squeezed out or siphoned off for water. And with water being one of our scarcest resources, it it is a good idea to conserve water where and how you can.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on WildEarth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Look at this, the little one is up and about. Certainly hasn't had enough milk at this age. No amount of milk is enough. Oh, Corky. Too sweet. Oh, look at this. That is stunning.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
Africa is very special, and when you come down here, even when you're watching through our camera, the landscapes are changed from desert to bushveld to up in the Masai Mara where there's grassland. That means that the biodiversity changes as we move along Africa. And what I love most about connecting with you guys is the fact that I get to share these wonderful experiences with thousands of people.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth.
Welcome back, everybody. I was just commenting on how dirty my fingers are from all the digging in the mud and the dirt. But talking about grasses once again and insects, we've got another one. This, everybody, is a pepper tick. Pepper tick, these are the fellows that no one is wanting to get on them at the moment. The reason they're called pepper ticks, because they're the size of pepper grains. Very, very small. It is tiny. That is minuscule. And that is next to a grass seed. That grass seed is probably eaten by birds, distributed by birds. So that tick is waiting for a herbivore animal to move through so that it can suck onto it and eat its blood, suck its blood, and then grow into a big, fat, juicy tick, which then will continue the cycle of giving back to the nutrients. So another very, very good example of animals that utilize the environment for themselves. And ticks will often sit on the end of grass stalks like this and do something known as questing. Let's see if it works. They often respond to carbon dioxide. I think he's done. He's not going to talk with us today. But often they respond to carbon dioxide because they're expecting a buffalo to arrive. And next thing, they just clamp on to the fur of the buffalo and then they're going to grow. Okay, I'm going to throw this guy back in the bush and I'm going to do a little demonstration. We've got this nice black background behind us so that we can see the grass stalks. And I just wanted to go through a couple of the, for example, we just wanted to discuss the difference between what animals choose and don't choose to eat. But let's just start with an identification of the grass itself. I've just got to try and navigate where the camera is. Yeah, and I've lost it. Oh goodness, there we go. Okay, so grasses have got what we call adventitious roots, which means that they're quite shallow, they don't go very deep into the ground, they hold the soil together, and they collect shallow rainfall. Very, very important, so as not to compete with trees too directly. Trees have much deeper roots, tap roots, which access the water. And then as we look through grasses, we look at how the grass itself grows, and they grow from the base. So these are the bits that grow first, and then it starts to grow and extend into the inflorescence, and then you start to see sort of the leaf structure. Now, as we move along the leaf, you'll see that different leaves have different sort of, or different plants have different ideas. So grasses are called monocotyledons because when they grow with one leaf. Trees grow with two. So there's one leaf, and then the next leaf is over there, and the next leaf is over there. And through identification, if you actually have a look at this, you'll notice that there's very small little, what do you call it? Little hairs. Can you see those little hairs over there? Okay, so those are hairs around the leaf stalk. Could be quite a nice identification feature where the leaf attaches, and then as the leaf continues to grow, Nice, long, straight lines on the leaf. This is what the weavers are using for building their nest. Nice, long, straight veins, parallel veins. And as we continue up, we start to get to what we call the nodes. I've lost it again. Okay, so here is what we call a node, which is basically a knee joint. You see there's another node just above there, a node and a node. Where the nodes are basically knee joint, you often have leaf stalks growing to that point. Sometimes there's some fur around there. Each grass is different. So when you go through them, have a look at these very intricate little details. Have a look over here, where that leaf attaches. All of that fur is over there. Okay, so we call hair around the ligule. Okay, so very important characteristic of some grasses. And there is the node again. In between the node is called the internode. Okay, there's another node and internode. In between there you've got the leaf and the sheath where it attaches to the stalk itself. So that peels off quite nicely. And this is essentially what animals feed on, is the leaves. But some leaves are tasted than others, and this plant itself is called stink grass. And if I crush it, that has got a very, very strong chemical smell. And we talk about palatable versus non-palatable grasses. They've got lots of chemicals. You can actually smell the chemical. They don't digest very well. And grasses, they've got lots of fiber, cellulose. We spoke about the elephant dung earlier with the cellulose. Is not digested very well. So animals leave cellulose and chemicals alone. They look for the sweet grasses that are very low. And this grass, stink grass, has got nutrients in it right now, but it's got lots of chemicals and it's eaten now. But as the season goes on, it's not going to get eaten at all. And that serves a very important function. As we keep going up, we'll show you how to identify this particular type. Have a look on that node there, how many fur, how much hair is on there. Isn't that interesting? Very easy to identify. And again, more fur on the nodes. And as we get to the inflorescence, inflorescence is the flower. And you can see it's almost finger-like. It's got a bit of a purple tinge to it. And there are actually little pinholes inside the inflorescence, which is impossible for you to see now. But there's little pinholes just sort of inside those little bits there. Each of these are seeds. It's got a bit of a purplish tinge to it, and if you crush the leaves, they're very aromatic. And the name pinhole grass or stink grass is given to this one. So this is a grass that this time of year is eaten, but for the most part it's not eaten. And being an increaser too, it's a grass that increases when there's too many animals around. It's also subclimax, which means it protects the soil, which means no one eats it and it stays in an area that gets overutilized. So its ecological role is to support the soil. Now, Ian, yes, weavers could potentially use this grass. Those leaves that are pulled off there could work quite well, but sometimes they prefer to use much longer leaf stalks. These aren't the longest of leaves that I've found out here, but definitely a plant that likes to burn. Okay, so now that we've gone through the idiosyncrasies of the grass, here is the thereon. This is a clustered thereon, so a tassel thereon. Aristida congesta. Nice to see up and close. You can see that there is the seed and the awn will fall down. So that is a very, 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 very pioneer-like grass, and there's its cousin, the spreading thereon, which looks very, very similar. Very similar, but this one has got some branched its. That one is very clustered, Aristida congested. Very easy, hey? Thereon. And then, what have we got? Very nice. Increaser 2, the signal grass we spoke about earlier. There, those little seeds there, eaten by birds. Look how lovely they are arranged on the end there. And the signal, so left is to Paris and New York. Djuma this way, Arethusa that way. Very, very nice, different inflorescence. And then one of the nicest grasses around, very nice to see it up close, is the red grass. This is a climax out of 10. You'd give this a 10 out of 10 score. This is a grass that loves to burn. It loves fire, and animals love to eat it. If you were a farmer and you were farming cattle, you would want to burn your area so that you grew only this grass, 100% this grass, and you'd be very, very happy. 10 out of 10. Palatability, this grass has got no chemicals, this grass has got no cellulose, no fiber, or very limited. It's very nutrient rich, very, very tasty, and animals will love this grass. And it's also grass that decreases if it gets overutilized. It also decreases if you have too much other grass around, which means it gets outcompeted. Hence why it's a fire-loving grass. Fire opens up the system and removes other species from outcompeting this and shading it. It likes to do very, very well in sort of well-used but not overutilized areas. Okay, here's the other very nice climax grass. Well, all seed eaters depend on grass for existence. All the seed-eating birds that we see around all depend on grass seeds for the most part. And these little grass seeds that you can see here are for the Panicum maximum. This type of inflorescence is called a panicle. And you'll have many, many canaries and lots of all the seed-eating birds, the waxbills. This is what they feed on. And those little purple fellows there are delicious. I eat them right now. They're very, very tasty. Very, 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 very tasty. And this is also out of 10. 10 out of 10. This is the climax grass you saw earlier that was underneath the drainage line that grows really well, called buffalo grass, Panicum maximum. This also decreases if it gets overutilized and decreases if it is underutilized. So it also needs fire and herbivory to keep it going. But a very, very good grass, but it likes semi-shade, whereas the red grass, which is right over here, hello, this is so much fun. The red grass likes to burn. Okay, and then we're going to do one more grass over here before you all get bored and try to run away. And you'll notice that it's quite long. It's one of a few. And this grass has got some human uses, as you can see. Look how long it is. It's very thatch-like, isn't it? This is one of our grasses that's used for making thatch. This is actually known as turpentine grass. And the leaves, as you can imagine, the name turpentine, it stinks. It smells of chemicals, it smells of turpentine, smells of fuel, and you can actually weave baskets out of this, and it's been used to weave baskets to keep rodents away. And here, are you ready? It keeps going, doesn't it? That's why we use it for thatching, one of the many. And here's my hand, my very dirty nails, I do apologize. And here comes the very messy thatch grass, the turpentine grass. Very easily identified, very messy accumulation of seeds there in the top. So this is what we call an increaser 1. We haven't discussed increaser 1 before, but you noticed how tall and long it was. That's because that is thatch. That is cellulose. So the cellulose, together with the chemicals, makes this grass unpalatable, because cellulose is not easily broken down. It's why we find it in rhino dung and we find it in elephant dung, because cellulose doesn't break down well. That's why we use it in thatching, and so animals will avoid something like this. And being an increaser 1, it increases when there's no one around, so it does very well far away from water, which means it is a fire-driven grass as well. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed all of our grass chats and inflorescence. We'll still try and do a bit more as we go, but we're going to send you over to andBeyond Phinda with a beautiful sunset.
Welcome back to Phinda, where we've got such an unreal sunset happening here. We've got what looks like a bit of a storm approaching from the left-hand side, from the south, and the sun just shining through those clouds. Don't know if you can see as well, they're just in the distance. There's some beautiful European rollers just flying around, catching the insects that are about to hatch and expose themselves. This is the time of the day when you want to be out in the African bush, on top of a lookout with a lovely gin and tonic in your hand. Look at that beautiful little red outline on the cloud there. Almost looks like a lightning bolt. It's also the time when a lot of our predators that have been just resting for most of the heat of the day start waking up and start cleaning themselves, grooming and yawning and preparing themselves for a night out. And as the sun starts going down like this, you can see that outline just becoming even more illuminated. Just peeking through there now. Yeah, isn't it just, Antoinette? It's really, really awesome. And Simon and I were just driving around and weren't really taking notice, and then Simon pointed out and said, look at that. And something you can just stare at and captivates all your attention. Can you hear some crested francolin going as well? We're really blessed at Phinda to have a lot of mountains around. We're on the Lubombo mountain range, just on the southern tip, and often at this time we'll go and find the highest point that we can and watch the sun just going down like this. Even though you can't really see the sun, you can see the beautiful silhouettes of the mountains in the background too. Nicanova, often the reddish sky just means a little bit of dust pollution in the sky, so that's what that color might be from. But definitely on the left hand side, just to the left of where that red is coming through, you can see it's quite a darker shade, and that'll be the sign of the weather that's coming. We also know that most of our rain comes from the south, especially on this reserve, so we know that probably in the next couple of hours we're going to have a little bit of rain. February is when we get most of our rain, and as of late, so the last two weeks, we've had over 200 mils of rain, which is quite a lot for February. Hoping that doesn't continue into tomorrow morning, because then you won't be seeing us out on drive, unfortunately. But hopefully we have some lovely rain tonight. As we've seen recently, all our animals are looking in really, really good condition. All the animals are looking healthy and almost a little bit plump, and that's just because of the water allowing the grass to just thrive, as well as the trees. It almost looks like, I think if plants could smile, they'd be smiling at the moment. And this obviously allows the animals to get as many nutrients as they can out of this grass just before it starts turning to the cooler, drier winter months. is also the time where animals that we've been seeing this afternoon, like giraffe and zebra, will be starting to look for a place, nice open area, to spend the night. They'd be getting their last little bit of food in for the day, and then look for an open area that they can obviously see and hear for a little bit further. At night time, as we mentioned earlier, that's when the predators start moving about. And they'd probably spend the night very close to one another, just keeping each other's back. You can actually just hear the low rumble of the thunder in the distance too. Thanks, Edward. Yeah, it's definitely one of the most beautiful places on earth, and these mountains just add to that, allowing for the different shades as well. You can see if you move from left to right, the left is quite a bit lighter, and as you move to the right it gets darker and almost like a bit hazy.
February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. WildEarth Explorers. It's in your nature.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on WildEarth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
The croc is still holding another one there. It's holding from the hindquarters. I would really want the wildebeest to cross. Is it trying? The croc is holding the tail. It's holding tight. Oh no. Goodness me. Lucky, lucky wildebeest. You have another day to leave.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
We are on our way to go check out Tlalamba's kill from this morning again. We did it at the beginning of drive. Apparently it's nearby. So we're going to go have a look. And then we came across this young male who's been terrorizing this marula tree. He's been shaking it to get marulas to fall. He's done it twice now, so I'm hoping that he'll do it again. Now, it's because of this exact act that marulas have evolved to drop their fruit before they're ripened, so that elephants don't have to push them down in order to get fruit. They'll ripen on the ground. And if you've ever seen a marula tree and in season, you'll find that there's lots of green marulas that are slowly starting to turn yellow beneath them, or beneath the branches. So the idea is that the elephants will go after those and not break branches or push over trees. And the way that would work is that the marulas that drop their fruit earlier are more likely to survive, so they reproduce. Those that keep their fruit or had kept their fruit ripened on their branches in the tree, those are the ones that got pushed over and were not able to reproduce. And that's how the whole thing became streamlined. And now we can say that that is an adaptation, that marula trees. Now he's a bit fussy, so I don't want to reposition too much, and I hope that he'll come back up, or come back out, and shake the tree again. Although I must say, after 2 shakes of an elephant, perhaps all the marulas that are going to drop have already dropped. So we'll just watch him for a little bit. But he seems to have also discovered that there aren't many marulas left there. Okay, well, we're going to head down and hopefully see our girl Tlalamba, and we're going to send you over to a stunning sunset at Ngala.
Oh, there it is. And talking about elephants going behind the bush, we just have one walking out of the bush. And in the background we have this absolutely stunning sunset. Almost feels like the sunset's over the whole western part of the Lowveld. There's the elephant bull just casually strolling along on his own. Probably come to this area to come and feed off the grass. This is personally one of my favorite times of the day. And I'd like to just sometimes sit and have a listen out. By now, the animals that move after dark might start to show some signs, and it's a good time to listen out for any signs, any calls of lions or hyenas. Lauren, I agree with you. This is literally a picture-perfect sunset. And as the sun's disappearing behind, the last of the sun's disappearing behind that cloud, we can notice the outline of the Drakensberg Mountains, the northernmost side of it, the biggest mountain range in South Africa. It looks like we might get another glimpse of the sun coming through the few gaps below that bank of clouds. Almost looks like the embers of coals in a bushfire. Talking about bushfire, as that sun's disappearing, it's also still quite hot here. And I saw that elephant earlier on was flapping his ears. Still cooling himself down. It's a little bit humid. I'm sure that bank of clouds there has probably got a little bit to do with that. While we sit here with the sun disappearing, we'll head over to Phinda to have a look at the moon on their side.
Welcome back, where we've just gone from a beautiful sunset to this beautifully well illuminated moon. Really, really pretty, and it's in the phase of waxing gibbous, which means it's just about to go into full moon. But if we just go down towards our left now, we've got these two beautiful male giraffe who are actually just starting to spar as the sun's setting and the light's fading. You can see them lining up next to each other, neck to neck. They are still quite young males, so they're not going at it too intensively. See how they're avoiding eye contact, and the one that's further away from us, slightly smaller. See them putting their heads down there, just sizing each other up. There we go. See what I mean? They're not really doing it very, very hard, but they are just practicing for one day. Oh, nice bum shot there. So when they're bigger and are fighting quite seriously, they'll aim more for the ribs, just behind the legs there, and also for the neck, like that. That's quite a new technique I haven't seen before, with the backwards headshot. There, that move is again. Wonder if he's going to patent it. You can imagine with that big, strong head and those heavy horns, a full blow with good momentum actually can cause quite a lot of damage. I've heard that they can actually paralyze one another if it hits it in the right spot. You can imagine a fully grown male fighting against one of these guys. If one of them was a bit over brave and stuck it out, I'm sure he could get himself into quite a lot of trouble. You can see the one that's closest to us also getting very dark, and as he gets older, I'm sure he's going to get a lot darker, especially there on the neck. American women, I'm just trying to figure out exactly what you mean by that, but I've seen them sometimes even being a little bit affectionate, maybe rubbing each other or against each other's necks. Often one maybe has a bit of an itch and there's no rubbing post to satisfy that itch. And maybe when one of the males is courting a female, he might do what he can to try and impress her, give her a bit of affection. But that's a good question. I don't know if you heard that, but that low rumble of the storm approaching is happening again. Sometimes when they just play fighting like this, one might get a good shot in, and it can change the attitude a little bit and start to get slightly more aggressive like this. You can see they're going a little bit harder at it. Still not full tilt, but the smaller one seems to be more into this fight than the slightly larger one. See, he's giving most of the blows there. See the larger one just kind of facing away from him, not really too interested. Actually just trying to avoid it now. It seems to be a bit over this playfulness. I wonder if they're going to get dizzy. They've been going in circles for quite a while now. But it's really important for them to develop these skills, especially before they start competing with slightly more experienced bull, one that's been fighting for a lot longer than these guys have. So this is a really, really important stage for them. Similar to maybe lion cubs that are stalking one another and interacting and play fighting and catching grasshoppers. Very similar idea, where just practicing it before they get into the real deal. Developing those skills and using their instinct. So we're going to leave these two giraffe and we're going to carry on going, see if we can come across any of those nocturnal animals that we were talking about earlier, and we're going to send you off to Steve.
Well, everybody, welcome back. Sorry, it's been interesting just sitting and waiting and enjoying the moon as it grows in the distance. It'll be full moon probably the next 3 days or so. Anyway, we promised you to culminate in a succession discussion, hence why I'm on the floor with my umbilical cord here so that you can hear me. I can't hear any communications, so questions to me directly now will have to come through Johan. So let's try to get through this before we lose light. Succession is a blank slate. There were plants here once before, and now we have an open patch of ground. Okay, now what happens? Along comes an antelope, like a steenbok over here, and damages the ground. Remember, the ground's quite hard. This is a bit of an erosion bed, so it's not the hardest of grounds, but the ground is quite hard. So here's a steenbok track, so we can mimic it with sort of a movement just to damage the soil, because the soil forms a bit of a crust. So the importance of the herbivore here is important because they are able to turn this crust over. Sometimes the crust can be very, very hard and impossible for the ground to basically be accessed. Along comes some seeds, an example, this carrot seed, and they blow in to these holes on the ground, or they just blow along and then get stepped into the holes in the ground. And lo and behold, along comes a little bit of rain. Rain, rain, rain. And then those seeds germinate and they form a small little pioneer plant, like this one, for example. Okay, now have a look. Not an enormous amount has changed, but now we've got some access to the nutrients in the soil. We've got some access to the water in the ground. There's a small amount of shade, and lo and behold, a little bit of organic material has now fallen off. Some more seeds have been generated by this plant itself, and next to it there's some leaves that fall off. And then along comes an animal, and the animal moves through again, and they maybe drop a little bit of dung, maybe a little bit of urine, which has got some nitrogen in it, and some water, a little bit more. And slowly but surely this is starting to change. Where the organic material is, you've now got certain insects that are maybe starting to break it down, microbes that are starting to turn it back into the soil, ants that are burrowing to pick up the seeds to take them under the ground, and lo and behold, the seed of a much more established grass finds foot and decides it's going to root in the ground right next to it. Now look at the difference between that pioneer and that sort of subclimax. Hello, subclimax. Normally the rooting happens a bit better than what I'm doing here, but have a look at how much more shade has been provided, although this is also a pioneer, so it's not an enormous difference. Another pioneer that has decided to grow moves in from the side. This is a grass called couch grass, which is actually very special grass. You have a look at it over here. This is what we call stolons, okay? This is where it is rooted, and as it grows along the ground, it roots itself. So this is actually one of those special grasses that grows, and a stolon is basically above ground root system. So it grows, and then it roots, and it grows, and it roots. So this one starts off probably over there, and it moves into this area, and it starts to hold the ground more. Look how this whole area is changing, and now more moisture into the mix. A couple more animals move through. There's a little bit more, and they're feeding. You see, the animals have come to eat. There's a little bit more sort of disturbance to the ground, more rain, because, you know, it's a seasonal area. A tree seed moves in, and now we're starting to see a little bit more shade because this is producing more organic material. There's more leaf matter falling down, more leaf matter falling on the ground, a little bit more shade forming. Now this doesn't happen overnight, everybody. This is sort of a slow process. Some more seed starts to fall in, some little wild flowers, their seeds fall in as well. And wildflowers are generally annuals, so they pop up next season. And there we go. We've got a little wildflower. The little wild aniseed has popped up. More seeds, organic material. And of course, it's raining again. Raining again. This lovely little garden developing. Remember what it used to look like? And now essentially what's happening is if you pans along the stream bed here, you can kind of see that that's sort of happening in a slow process, that sort of succession from early stage. It's the early stages there. You can see there's some open patches, and as it goes up the bank, you can see how it slowly is encroaching itself and getting thicker and thicker. And those roots are digging into the ground. They're accessing more nutrients. They're bringing nutrients up. They're turning that nutrients into organic material. The organic material is falling down into the ground. And lo and behold, another plant with much more roots, much more organic material, ends up getting established in the ground. And have a look at our system that is starting to form now. This is the herringbone grass. This is a increaser 2 as well, but it's a subclimax. Look at the organic material. Look at the shade. And remember, shade is not just for protecting the ground against the heat, but it's also for protecting the ground against losing moisture. So now we've got far more moisture retention. An open patch of ground is just evaporating. There's nothing that survives there. It just evaporates. Now under here we've got microbes, we've got insects, we've got organic material. We've got all sorts of things that are sort of doing their thing in the ground. And of course, more animals come along. And what do? They have a poo, and then an elephant comes along, and elephant dung. Look at all of that organic material there, which is one elephant dropping. And look at the shade underneath there, and also the moisture that this will hold over time. That organic material with the seeds that they bring in starts to sort of change the sort of environment. And can you see already now we're sort of in the subclimax sort of stage. Another subclimax grass in that stink grass that we spoke about before, that also moves in. And now we're getting really quite a bit of sort of ground cover. And some of the branches will fall over, as they do. They fall over, and it's very, very natural. An elephant walked through here, or a buffalo, and trampled the grass. The grass is now flat on the ground, and that grass isn't going to grow very well. It's just going to return back to the soil. But the shade element that it creates, now we've got a subclimax vegetation state. Now, obviously, at this point, that can get ripped up and completely removed and back to beginning stage, or in comes your climax, which then moves in, and look at this grass material that is now shading over the area. And so now we've gone from that one patch in the beginning with almost no organic material, no shade, no seeds, to suddenly this. And it's basically completely covering the soil. And along comes an animal and destroys it all, and back to the beginning. So it's a cycle. It's very interesting. Keeps me entertained. I hope you've enjoyed it too. But we're going to send you over to somewhere else, and I'm going to get back on the vehicle.
We have managed to squeeze ourselves into a very precariously placed spot in the Mawati, and so is Tlalamba. Very well hidden, not the best view, but it's the best view we're going to get. I'm just glad that we managed to actually see her. She's all the way up in this Tamboti, a little bit further north from where she was with Tristan this morning. And she's just moved her kill a little bit further up the tree. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot, but just, if I were a leopard, I think this would be an ideal spot to feast on my dinner. It's also Tambotis that can be straight and tall trees. So it's difficult to get up for a leopard. You don't often see them in Tambotis. But it's been several times that I've seen Tlalamba in a Tamboti. She's still got that impala kill. And there are two hyenas beneath the tree. One's just walked off. It's Ribbon and Sutu. Listen to these beautiful evening sounds. Look at that. Look at how difficult it is to drive right by and not even see her. In fact, you wouldn't even have the opportunity to drive by because you have to off-road to get here. Luckily, things are pretty stable. There's the Mulwati in the distance there, or in the background. And there's a piece of a hyena, or part of a hyena. I think it's Sutu still. Ribbon has wandered off. Waiting for scraps. Oh, look at that color, that deep green that this gorgeous wet season has allowed us to appreciate. Look at her, moving, 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 waiting for something to fall. Doesn't it almost look rainforesty? So thick and lush. I can hear hyenas moving around me, and I can just see them a little bit. If they come closer, I'll definitely point them out. It's just, it's so bushy that everything that we have a visual of at the moment is obscured by the bush. And even though there's still a lot of light because of the canopy of the Tamboti, and Tambotis grow in groves, so there'll be a number of them growing in the same area as is the case here. And what that does, it creates quite a dense canopy, and we have very little light coming through onto our Tlalamba here. Hi, Rupman. You're 6 years old. You'd like to know, how do leopards climb trees exactly? Well, they have a really strong, stocky body. There goes a hyena. Hello. And here comes another. So Rupman, they have strong, stocky bodies, and they have claws that allow them to climb the tree. So the claws give them traction or grip. So they allow them to grip on, but it's their muscles that actually pull them up. Oh, hyena commotion going on there. The muscles allow them to pull themselves up, and not just themselves, but also their prey. Look how dense it is. It's so difficult to get a good visual. Now, what also helps them climb up is a tree that's got lots of branches, and like a marula where the bark is not smooth. That also allows them to get a little bit extra grip. But having branches coming out at different heights of the tree allows them to kind of move from one point to another. And that's really helpful. That's why when I mentioned that Tlalamba is in this Tamboti, well, that's exactly why I mentioned it, because it doesn't have those branches that kind of go off at different lengths. All the branches are concentrated at the top. So she needs to climb all the way and pull her weight all the way to the top before she can have a release and relax her muscles. But luckily, the bark of the Tamboti is fissured enough to give her some grip. So there isn't too much light, but maybe we'll just get a last little look at her, because I'm afraid with this visual, and she's not going to come down because there's still some feeding to be done, but with this visual we may not see much. Well, we'll try our best, see if there's some other angle, but as you can see, it's so bushy and it's getting quite dark. And if we can't stay with her, we'll go off and see what's happening at the hyena den.
Hi, I'm Sue. I'm from South Africa and I'm the incredibly lucky winner of the Tswalu competition. Tswalu has so much to offer, but we're really looking forward to the game viewing options, as going out with a personal guide who has so much knowledge will just be exceptional. Motsi Lodge looks absolutely amazing and we're so looking forward to spending time there. It really is out of this world. I only registered as an explorer towards the end of January, so when the email arrived stating that I was the winner, it took me totally by surprise. I'd just like to thank WildEarth and Tswalu for this most incredible prize. It really is a dream come true.
WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
The reason why we see that wildebeest by himself is because he's a male, or a bull, as we typically would call him. And what he does is that he marks and defends an area. Essentially, he is looking for the ultimate piece of land or prime property. Needs to have good grazing, needs to have a water source close by. And not too far away from here, there's a sickle bush thicket that would provide just enough shelter from the wind and the rain.
My name is Lauren and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
Hello, Mama. Just checking us out, everybody. There's no aggression here. Very relaxed. A herd of elephants moving around your car like that. It's truly, truly magical.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
So we've just been moving from the one clearing to the next this afternoon, and we've been finding elephant bulls, and most of them actually. Well, in fact, we've only been to 3 clearings since the last one, and we found 3 elephant bulls, so I guess that's an elephant per clearing. But these are 2 really large bulls from what I can see. And I notice that their ears are still flapping. In fact, I can actually hear it from where I am, which is amazing. It means that they're still hot, they're still trying to cool themselves down. I can hear the one sounds like he's actually busy throwing some mud on him. I just want to move a little bit forward because it looks like there might be a pan of some sorts up ahead. Oh no, he's going to move out from behind. I'll move a few meters forward. There we go. And then we can see the sun's rays still coming through the clouds at the back and from behind the mountains. In that little depression there in front of the elephant, I'm sure there's a wallow of some sorts. Elephants always move behind the bush. Randy, if I have your question correctly, you're asking what type of feet does elephants have? They have quite large, round feet. Oh, I think I apologize. I think what type of teeth do elephants have? They have a flat ridge of molars, both at the top and the bottom. And these, with the age, as they age, kind of wears down and moves out and gets replaced by a new set of molars that moves into the place of the old ones. So it's teeth for grinding. Plant material, bark. And it's amazing, the trunk aids a big part within the way they feed, because the trunk essentially is what helps them break off manageable pieces or sizes. And in part, that's also why, besides the nutritional value, that's why they eat so much grass in the summertime. Quite good at searching for the best type of grass. It's a large animal and it needs a lot of food. The grasses are easier to digest for them, and it's also high in nutrients. And it's a lot softer on their teeth. Now, these two are quite large bulls. They don't look... Well, the one I saw from a different angle earlier looked like it might be a mature bull. The other one looks slightly younger, and I think that you do find that younger bulls will travel with the older ones. It's kind of, in a way, a learning school for them. It's also a way they get taught some discipline. There's definitely some form of a hierarchy. The older, bigger bull usually have the right of way. That's why this is a situation that's not too uncommon. You do often find elephant bulls. These two, I didn't see any signs of them being in must, so they've probably moved away from areas with herds and they're here specifically for the food in this area. I think their evenings just started. I think these two, today was very hot and I'm sure they would have looked for some shade and water. And now that the cool air of the evening is starting to move in, they'll more than likely feed for quite some time. They might actually spend a lot of time in this very clearing before they move to the next, or down to the river. It's getting very, very dark here where we are now, and these elephants, the color of the skin make them blend in perfectly. Zane, elephants don't sleep too much, out in the wild at least. They've done a study a while back where they studied elephants in captivity as well as in the wild, and they found that the elephants in captivity slept, some of them more than 4 hours a night, like 6. In some cases where the elephants out in the wild, they found on average slept only 2 hours. And I know one of the reasons that they gave for that is the social pressure from other elephants within the area. So that's amazing, like elephant herds are actually under a little bit of stress from other animals, and that's why we saw a younger bull elephant earlier this afternoon, and even though he was on his own and feeding, he looked like he had a bit of stress, which makes me think or wonder, do they actually get put under pressure by these larger bulls? I'm sure they do, because if these bulls move into an area, those ones have to move out. But there's a nightjar coming up. But because we can't see those elephants clearly anymore, and they look like they're going the opposite direction that we are, I think we're going to continue and maybe look if we might get lucky with a nocturnal animal on the road. Maybe a leopard. Still wishing for that leopard. Haven't seen a leopard in a while. And I think that would be a brilliant surprise on Ngala at this point. Jackie, the most exciting sighting I've had at night, it's very difficult to choose. I can't really say specifically that sighting is my favorite or most exciting. I've seen a lot of exciting stuff, and in a way, everything to me is exciting. Sometimes even a flower or a mouse. In fact, it's quite tricky seeing mouse or mice here. Especially now with this tall grass. You can get a glimpse of them running across the road every now and again. But I'd say the sightings of animals hunting, I do enjoy that. Even though we don't shine light on them. We usually just sit and listen out to the noises they make if they are successful, or when the hooves of the animals running away starts making noises. And then the surprise of finding something like a male lion or a leopard walking on the road, just suddenly steps out from the tall grass next to the road right in front of you. I do also enjoy hyenas after dark. They can be very exciting, especially if they're feeding around a carcass. Because at night time is when they're active. That's when the attention of other predators get drawn. But I think my ultimate favorite after dark is to watch a young male lion, a non-territorial animal. So, while we continue our search for nocturnal animals, we'll send you over to Tswalu with an owl.
We've just found these 2 spotted eagle owls in the road. They're quite far from us, so the picture might be a little bit grainy, but it's quite interesting to see them on the road. Now what we're going to try to do, because at the moment the only reason we're seeing them is because my vehicle lights are on, but they're quite far away, so they're just grabbing the light. So what I'm going to try to do is switch the lights off. Oh, listen to them call. I'm going to switch the lights off and try to move very slowly towards them. This might not work, but it's preferable than having the light shining onto them. So let's try. Putting the lights off. You can still see their eye shine. Oh no. Oh no. And they're off. But like I said, preferable than having the light shining right onto them. Oh well, it was nice to see them, right? Maybe if we move a little bit forward, we might be able to catch them again. So as you can see, we're in infrared now, and that's because it is dark, and we don't want to shine artificial light on animals. What was really nice about that sighting, and why we're lucky that we got to see it, was that we had just arrived and we just found it. So they're still on the road again. Thing is, I know they're not going to let us closer. Let's try this one more time. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Let's try that impulse. Already flown off. But there's another thing to talk about. Did you hear even the slightest sound as they flew off? Because I didn't. And that's testament to their adaptations. Ah, there we go. It looked like it landed on the ground. But that's testament to their adaptations of these frayed feathers that allow them to move silently through the air in the evenings, which is very, very important if you're an aerial nocturnal predator. Okay, let's see what else we can find. Leave these guys be. Obviously, we're messing around with their hunting strategy this evening of being on the road. So you'll find that lots of birds like to be on the roads in the evenings, especially if they're predators, because that makes it very easy for them to see their prey. There's no canopy above a road, right? It's clear, so they can easily see prey against the night sky. Now we look for one of my other favorite little things to find at night. You know what? Chameleons. Only been lucky with one so far these last few days. So I need to up the ante. But everything's so dense, they have to be on the periphery of any of the bushes for me to actually be able to see them. Now at that Columbus sighting, we're actually quite far away from camp and from the hyena den. The hyena den's quite close to camp. So we'll try and make it there. But if not, we'll just look for a whole lot of little things along the way. There we go. I think I have a chameleon-y feeling, so I think it's going to happen. Or maybe a genet like we had the other day. Anyway, that's just what I'm looking for. I'm sure Yapi, also bumbling about, has his own list.
hope that Tswalu has some luck and find that chameleon. In fact, that gives me an idea as well. Along this road that we're driving now, it's close to the riverbed. The riverbed's just off to our right. There's some tricky sections of road to negotiate here. Very, very muddy. But then there's also large trees here and slightly higher probability that the leopard might move around here. Now, this road is so overgrown at this point, it's actually amazing. Once you drive onto the road, you immediately realize how much more life is along here because of the water nearby, and you can hear the crickets going. And all sorts of other insects and bugs. Kayleen, I am usually terrified when I'm on night drives. No, I'm joking. It's quite a lot of fun because you don't know what to expect. At any point, anything can walk out into the road, or you might see the eyes of something reflecting back at you, and that's very, very exciting. It's also the time of evening where certain animals, like something I just saw up ahead. I'm not sure what it is. No, I'm not sure exactly what that was. I just saw the reflection of two eyes. It looked like something small, something low down on the ground, so it might have been either a small cat or maybe something like a civet. Now, here where I am, it's quite difficult to see if there's any tracks of exactly what's moved across. And then besides that, I think I might have driven over it as well. And then you can see that very, very tall grass. Oh, there we go. It's a genet. And it looks like I'm going to take the light off it. And it looked like a large spotted genet that have disappeared now. You can just see the tail at this point. I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. That's the reflection of the eyes I saw. Now, that's a dead marula, and that tree's been dead for quite some time. It got broken by a huge storm 3 years ago. So at this point, it's quite hollow inside. There's a lot of cavities, and I'm sure there's a lot of creatures living inside. And I think that's why that genet's up on the tree looking for something to eat. But we might leave this genet, continue, and in the meantime send you over to Tswalu with her spider.
That is so cool. a genet. We haven't been seeing them as often, so it's so awesome to have seen one the other night with us and now with Yapi. Cool stuff. Here we have another bark spider like we did a couple nights ago. But this one has just started building its web. So all those typical spider webby shapes haven't been formed yet. It's just building the scaffolding that it'll use to do those radial designs as it goes round and round. Ooh, have you got something to eat there? No. Look at it go. It's just incredible. Can you start to see those lines that are going, or those strands of silk that are going from the middle out to the edge of the web? It's just starting to create those. Look at that. So methodical. It's just amazing me so much. It's kind of, and we've said this before, so mesmerizing to watch them work. And to the center. And then gonna take another one, maybe. There we go, out again. Stick it there, bring it back to the center. Amazing. See when it moves its back legs like that? We'll see again. When it gets back to the center. Pulling with the front legs and using the back legs to pull out silk. Watch there, it pulls. Oh, amazing. Haley, that is an excellent question. You'd like to know, how do spiders know how to build their webs? We don't know. They somehow seem to know exactly what to do, and we don't know if they learn or if it's already, the information is already inside them when they're born. But it is most likely that they are born with that information. We call that information innate information. So it's already in them and they naturally do it. Kind of like us walking. While you can be encouraged to walk by your parents, but even if you didn't have anybody taking care of you, you will learn how to walk, because it is a human thing to be able to walk, and of course that you have everything necessary, like the muscles and the bone structure to walk, so you naturally will do that. So that's what we think spiders have in their ability to make the web. So it's built into them. Because not many spiders take care of their young. There's very few that do that. And in order to learn, they'd have to learn from somewhere. So it's something that's built into them. They already know from the time they're born how to build a web. I think that's pretty amazing. Pupindra, you'd like to know if a spider ever runs out of supply to make a web. That is a really interesting question. It is possible that that would happen, but it is unlikely. And that's because they recycle their silk. So this bark spider, unless the web is truly badly damaged and lots of little bits that it have to clean off in it, it would consume the web once it's done. Because the silk can actually be broken down into its constituents again in the body of the spider. So it'll consume it and break it down into those proteins that make up the silk. So it's recycling all the time. But there are occasions where a spider could be really starved or on death's door and does not have enough, let's say, nutrition and energy to invest in producing good quality silk. Sometimes they may produce flimsy silk, and that's because of those two really important proteins we've spoken about before, spidroidin 1 and 2. If they don't produce those proteins correctly or enough of them, they'll produce silk that is brittle. So it's possible that they would run out of a supply, but they make sure they don't get to that point. Oh, see, now we're making the lines across. Oh, that's amazing. Lynn, you'd like to know how it doesn't get stuck in its own web. That's because a spider does not walk on its web. It hangs off of it. So at the end of its legs, it's got tarsuses, which are like little claws with hairs. You could hear the hyena whooping in the background. So these little claws hold on to the web, but the actual body of the animal hangs off of it. Now, if you look carefully, you can see that it almost looks like it's plucking the strings or the lines of silk. That's because it's hanging off of it. If it were to be thrown onto the web, for example, it would get stuck. And that's why spiders can catch other spiders on their webs. If they have a fight or something like that on a web, once the spider is dead, it'll stick it onto the web because the dead spider doesn't have the ability to use those little claws to hang off of the web. Look at it, it's the way it kind of strums. It's amazing how each leg, 8 legs, working in coordination like that. For me, they're some of the most interesting creatures. They produce 2 really biologically expensive materials, venom and silk. Really, really difficult things that many animals have not adapted to do. Venom, a little bit more common, but still so expensive. When I say expensive, I mean that it takes a lot of energy to produce it. Energy that they could use somewhere else. Energy that they could have used to catch more prey, to grow larger, but instead they invested in venom. So potent as well. And very specific. Its targets can be so specific. To just target the nervous system, just target the blood. And then on top of having venom, spiders have the silk to produce that no other creature produces in the same way. There are silk moths that produce a type of silk, but it is not nearly the same as what a spider produces. Look how with the back legs it pulls the silk out and then pushes it against. Jenny, you'd like to know how many kilometers of web this spider would produce in a night. Jenny, I have no idea. I really, really don't. I don't think that one of these webs would be more than a kilometer. But I have zero idea how many kilometers of web it would produce or how many meters of web. It depends on so much. I mean, at this stage, like I said, I don't think a kilometer has been spun. But also you get spiders that build a really large web like this, and then the gap between the different strands of silk is so small that maybe it could go to a kilometer, maybe more. I have no idea. Oops, there goes my radio. Veer, you'd like to know how spiders see at night? Spiders have, as you would know, 8 eyes. Not all spiders. Some spiders have 6 eyes. And they have simple eyes. So an insect like a dragonfly or a bee or a fly, they have compound eyes. So that's tiny little lenses or tiny little oculi, almost like a cone-shaped thing with a lens inside, a tiny lens, and then they use that to create an image. But a spider has a simple eye. We have a simple eye as well. So that is one big lens that has a different receptors, cones and rods. So it uses a density of rods, which are the special cells in your eye that are sensitive to whether it's light or dark. So it helps you see better at night, as opposed to cone cells, which help you see color, which don't have anything to do with whether you can see in the dark or not. So they have a high density of those, the ones that help you see at night in low light. And then they also have that reflective layer in their eyes that help them to capture light a second time round. And then imagine you have 8 of those that can do that. So there's a lot of information that you can collect about the nighttime. Anyway, we're going to move on up further north and leave this guy to carry on his nightly activities.
February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. WildEarth Explorers. It's in your nature.
Our bodies are made up of about 60% water, which means that in a very short space of time, you can dehydrate completely. A relatively efficient way of collecting water early in the morning is to take an absorbent material like a sock and to walk through the grass, absorbing the condensed dewdrops on the grass. Once the material is saturated, you can then squeeze it out into a container, or you can suck it out directly into your mouth.
My name is Steve, and one of my favorite things at WildEarth is getting questions from you. The type of questions that I really like are those ones that really help us to unpack and understand and really integrate the ecological knowledge and fully appreciate the importance that animals such as these Cape buffalo bring to the ecosystem. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, you're going to have to register on the website. But once registered, just head on over to the live Safari page and enter your question under the live feed.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
What makes andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve so special is our massive array of habitats. And with that comes, of course, a beautiful diversity of landscapes, but also an incredible biodiversity in terms of plants, bird life and animal life, as well as, of course, our conservation success stories with cheetah, with rhinos, now with pangolins too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth.
We just have a few minutes left of show, so I decided instead of us driving around and you looking at the back of my head, we could watch our spider continuing making its beautiful web. And I will also tell you that we saw a firefly. How amazing is that? I know this is a horrible thing to say, considering that I've been here for 2.5 years. But that's the first one I've seen here on Djuma. I've seen them growing up so much, but that was the first one I saw on Djuma. So I was very, very excited. So maybe tomorrow night we can keep an eye out for some fireflies. Our spider is, oh, look at those. Coming along so nicely, spider. Those edges. And when we arrived, it had just started. So let's say it's taken it half an hour to get 3/4 done, because doing the scaffolding and then taking out those lines from the center to the edges, that takes a lot of time. And then this bit is a lot quicker when it goes round and round and round. And so it's probably, I'd say, going to take 45 minutes at most to complete its web. That is a feat of nature. Amazing. Always glad to end show with one of the smaller, intricate creatures out here. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for your questions and your comments and sticking around with us. We'll see you in the morning. Bye-bye for now.
This program features live coverage of an African safari.